Welcome back to the Revenge Chronicles, the place where real stories of betrayal, heartbreak, and shocking revenge come to life. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because you don't want to miss what happens next in today's story. Now, listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you is something I never imagined could happen in my own family. The first time I saw my mother's sun pendant on Caroline's neck at a charity brunch, something inside me cracked like cheap porcelain, and I remember standing frozen while the trinket caught the light the same way it used to when Mom would tuck it behind her collar and laugh. Would you have let her wear it and smile in public while you kept your mouth shut? Tell me if you would have done the same, because I didn't leave it to chance, I planned. After Mom died, my father brought Caroline into our home like a warm blanket. Casseroles, gentle hands, practical promises. She was everything a grieving man wanted, except she wasn't filling the house with my mother's things so much as removing them. Little things went missing at first. A brooch from a velvet tray, a pair of studs from the jewelry box, and then I noticed patterns. Caroline appeared in photos wearing pieces I knew had belonged to my mother. She spoke casually about sorting the house, and she turned rooms into her projects with a precision that felt less like healing and more like occupation. My father, soft with grief and grateful for what he thought was comfort, didn't see the thefts for what they were. He saw a woman who made dinners and scheduled volunteers. I saw a woman who cataloged my mother's life and repackaged it as accessories for herself. I could have stormed into a charity event and ripped that pendant off her neck, but Caroline was built to handle fireworks. She diffused confrontation with a smile and a story, and any direct accusation from me would have been dismissed as grief. So I chose a different weapon: reputation. In a suburb like ours, what people think of you is currency. I started small. Questions phrased like curiosity to the right people, a casual remark to a PTA mom about an auction lot that looked odd, a nostalgic post from an anonymous account with a photo of Mom and the caption, "Does anyone remember this sun pendant?" Doubt spread faster than accusation. I kept a meticulous file. Photos of Caroline wearing pieces, dates of events, receipts for decor upgrades that matched purchases visible in her social life. I printed emails where my mother had asked me to keep her jewelry safe and taped them into a notebook I carried like a talisman. Building a case wasn't about law at first, it was about pattern and pressure. I arranged a small remembrance display in the community hall and invited a local journalist and the estate saleswoman who knew how lots were cataloged. I laid out a few of my mother's pieces, the sun pendant included, and quietly let the journalist photograph them while the estate woman explained how items sometimes slip through during clearouts. I played an audio clip where Caroline offhandedly mentioned sorting through boxes and let the room fill with that small, poisonous doubt. The article that followed didn't accuse outright, but it suggested irregularities. That's all it took. Friends began to ask questions in private messages, a charity deferred her leadership, and the polite smiles at luncheons turned cool. Reputation cracks coat deeper than evidence sometimes because people hate the possibility that they've been fooled. But I wanted more than whispers. I wanted the fracture to become irreparable. I learned how to follow the money, how a nonprofit could be a mailbox, and how donations could be rerouted as personal benefit if someone had enough social goodwill to hide a ledger. I found filings for a charitable organization Caroline had used to bolster her standing, then traced transfers that matched purchases and interior updates. I quietly engaged a friend who knew forensic accounting. He checked the records and annotated the strange flows. With those notes, I walked into the county attorney's office like someone bringing inconvenient facts, and the neutral inquiry that followed was surgical in its slowness. Audits, formal requests, letters that made irregularities official. Once the county took notice, lenders and partners that had once lined up behind Caroline's name started to step back. Donors froze gifts pending clarification. The charity asked her to step down while the audit proceeded. The very networks that upheld her lifestyle began to recede. I never wanted a theatrical takedown, I wanted a methodical collapse, and that's exactly what happened. Before any final legal paperwork, there was the very human unraveling. A neighbor who had lent Caroline money demanded repayment. A sponsor withdrew support. Friends stopped bringing her into their homes. Her polos and pearls couldn't conceal the strain behind her smile. She called my house once in a voice that tried to be reasonable and begged for a meeting to clear the air. I refused, answering once only to say, "Everything that's been taken will be found," and then I hung up. But before I tell you how it ended, because I want you to stay here with me, I want to ask you the same question I asked strangers and friends when this began. Pause and tell me in the comments what you would have done in my place. Would you have gone to the police? Publicly confronted her? Stayed silent? That feedback shaped the edges of what I did. Some urged legality, others urged patience. The climax came unexpectedly ordinary. Caroline arrived at our house on a Sunday with a boxed cake and the practiced smile of someone used to controlling narratives. My father opened the door because he's a man who forgives and believes people when they cry. I stood at the top of the stairs and watched her hand the cake to him and say, soft and steady, "I never meant to cause pain." I let her speak until the performance tired. Then I told her, without theatrics, what she'd taken, item by item, and how she had worn my mother's memory as a costume. My words were inventory, and my calm was the sharpest part of the knife. That moment was the fulcrum. Within weeks, her leadership roles were stripped, lenders reevaluated loans tied to a lifestyle she couldn't sustain without community goodwill, and the audit opened doors she couldn't close. The county's findings pushed donors to request repayments and trustees to distance themselves. Prices of her social currency plummeted. Houses that once sold at premium because of her name sitting on the guest list now sat with fewer offers. Movers packed her life and left while neighbors who had once posed for photos with her either avoided eye contact or sent terse messages that read like late apologies. She tried to negotiate quietly, to swap statements of regret for small repayments, but the structure that had supported her was gone. I didn't dance on her ruin. I am not that person. What I felt as her truck drove away was not triumph but a steadied, cold completion. My father thanked me once in his study with a voice that carried both relief and sorrow. "You were right," he said, and the words mapped the complicated geography of what we'd lost and what I'd salvaged. People asked if I felt guilty afterward. The truth is I felt calibrated. I'd exchanged a raw, aching vulnerability for a slow, precise architecture of proof that let me breathe without her shadow on every holiday. There were consequences. Some neighbors never spoke to me again, thinking I had been cruel. Others whispered thanks. My father and I rebuilt boundaries and routines. The house regained a rhythm that belonged more to us than to anyone pretending to belong. The pendant sits in my drawer now, wrapped in a napkin with Mom's initials on a tag I had the jeweler make. Sometimes I wear it when the evening is quiet and remember the ordinary laugh of a woman who braided my hair and told me everything would be all right. Other times I put it away and think about how reputation can be a weapon and how wielding it changed me in small, precise ways. If there's a moral, maybe it's this. People can masquerade as saints, and in small towns especially, the mask is a powerful currency. Exposing the mask sometimes becomes the only way to protect what truly belongs to the dead and to the living who loved them. If you are on my side, like this video, if you think slow, careful strategy can be the clearest route to justice when force would have been foolish, subscribe for more stories like this. Share your thoughts below. Was I right or did I cross a line? I read every comment, and I'll see you in the next story.